All right, we're going to talk about Unit 2, Lesson 2, which is literal equations. Now, generally, these are usually the most confusing for students, but you're not trying to understand what the equation represents. You're just trying to get one of the letters that they want all by itself. So it's just like solving. It's just going to have a lot more letters than you're used to. So the first thing, what is a literal equation? It is a formula that consists mostly of letters. So like distance equals rate times time, that is a literal equation. So they still work just like linear equations. You want to use inverse operations, and they will tell you which variable they want alone. So tips for solving literal equations. Overall, if you have a problem that's dividing on one side, you want to multiply by a denominator. Okay. You're still going to add or subtract terms that are being added, and then you're going to multiply and divide terms afterwards. Okay. So let's look at our first example. We've got u equals 2x minus 2, and we want to get x by itself. So that means we're going to have to move this 2 and move this negative 2. So keep that in mind. So if this u was a number, it probably wouldn't be any different than the last unit. So don't treat it any differently. We're going to add 2 since that's what's being subtracted. Now, it's the left side that confuses students. U plus 2 is not 2u. You really write it as u plus 2. You just write everything side by side. On the left side, all we have left is that 2x. So now, if we want to get x alone, those are being multiplied, so we're going to divide. Now, we can write it like that. So our final answer is u plus 2 over 2. And that would be fully correct. Now, let's talk about something though. So let's say we had the same step. When I divide, I can also divide them separately, but you still divide all terms. So I would get u over 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. That equals x. Now, these answers don't look the same, but they are both fully correct. All right, let's look at example 2. So u equals ak divided by b. This equation doesn't have any numbers, but that's okay. If we want to get a alone, that means I have to move the k, and we're going to have to move the b. Think of it that way. So go back up here. Overall, my right side is being divided, so my first step is to multiply by the denominator. So our denominator is b. So I'm going to multiply both sides by b. b divided by b does cancel, that's why we do that. So bu is just bu. And we're left with ak. On the right side, we still want to get a by itself, so that means I have to move that k. So if that's being multiplied, we're going to divide both sides by what we want to move. So keep that in mind. Say that to yourself. So bu over k equals a. Remember, your goal is not to make sense of the formula. Your goal is just to get the letter by itself. All right, let's look at example 3. We do have division, but the whole right side is not being divided. So that is going to be different than example 2. So what's our goal? We want to get a alone. So I'm going to have to move the m and move the b. So we always add or subtract first. The b is positive, so we're going to subtract b. So we just write z minus b on the left equals m over a. Now, this one's kind of different. Since a is in the bottom, I can turn my left side into a fraction also. And then if we flip the left, I can flip the right side. So I'm left with 1 over z minus b equals a over m. And then that actually makes it easier to solve. So if I want to get a alone, the m is being divided, so I'm going to multiply both sides by m. When you multiply, you only multiply the numerator. So we get a equals m divided by z minus b. And our goal was just to get a alone, which we did. All right, let's look at, I've got a couple more just to get you more comfortable. So example 4. A is what we want to get alone, so I have to move 3b, the negative 2, and the positive 2. We have to move all of those terms. So I'm going to do the adding or subtracting first. Now you can do this in one step, and I can subtract 2 and subtract 3b. So subtract 2, subtract 3b. Because all I'm really doing is putting them side by side on the left. So I've got u minus b minus 3b. We're not really able to combine any of those terms since they're not alike. On the right side, all I have left is that negative 2a. So this is going to turn into example 1. You can either divide everything or you can divide them all separately. It's really your choice. I honestly just like dividing them all. If this was multiple choice, you have to recognize both options though. So a equals, that negative usually just goes out in front, and I can leave it alone. If this was multiple choice, sometimes they'll distribute that negative actually to the numerator. So just be aware, if you had signs that were different, they might have it written as like the 2 is positive, the 3b is positive, and the u is negative. These are actually the same answers, they just look different. So that really is just for multiple choice options. All right, example 5. I see a parenthesis, so I'm going to distribute. Our goal is to get w by itself. So I have to move the 2 and I have to move the 2l. We always add or subtract the term first. So I write them side by side. And then same option, I'm going to divide by 2, so either do them all together or do them separately. I'll do them separately this time, just because. There is a 1 up here, so sometimes you might also see that as 1/2 p minus l equals w. It could be written as p over 2, or we could have written it as p minus 2l all over 2. All 3 of these are good equivalent answers. And our last example, volume equals length times width times height. That's actually the formula for the volume of a prism. So if I want to get L alone, I have to move the W and move the H. If these are all being multiplied, I can divide by them both at the same time. So they do cancel, and I get V divided by WH equals L.